Claire Whitmore thought she had it all. A corner office on the 20th floor, a CEO title at 30, and the respect that came with being Harold Whitmore's daughter. But on one smoke-filled night, when death came knocking and the lights went out, it wasn't her wealth or power that saved her. It was a man she'd looked through for 2 years without ever seeing his face. Marcus Reed risked everything to pull her from the flames, but what happened next would destroy her reputation, shatter her family's empire, and force her to choose between the life she'd built and the love she never saw coming. Some rescues save your life, others save your soul. But when the camera started rolling and the world began watching, Claire discovered that being saved might cost her everything she thought she wanted. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this story about love, sacrifice, and seeing people for who they really are will change how you look at everyone around you. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft whisper. Claire Whitmore pressed the button for the 20th floor and checked her watch. 9:30 at night. Most people had been home for hours, probably watching TV with their families or tucking their kids into bed. But Claire wasn't most people. She was the CEO of Whitmore Industries, and tomorrow morning she had to face the board of directors. Her father would be sitting at the head of that long table, watching her every move, waiting for her to prove she belonged in this job. The elevator hummed as it climbed. Claire stared at her reflection in the polished doors. Her blonde hair was still perfect, pulled back in the tight bun she wore every day. Her navy suit showed no wrinkles. She looked like success. She looked like control. But inside, her stomach twisted with worry. The elevator dinged and the doors opened to reveal the empty 20th floor. The hallway stretched out before her, lit by the soft glow of emergency lighting. During the day, this place buzzed with energy. People rushed between meetings, phones rang, keyboards clicked. Now, it felt like a ghost town. Claire's heels clicked against the marble floor as she walked to her office. She passed Dana's empty desk. Her assistant had tried to convince her to go home hours ago. "You need rest, Claire," Dana had said. "The presentation is ready. You know it backwards and forwards." But Claire couldn't stop. She had to be perfect. She had to prove that giving her this job wasn't just because she was Harold Whitmore's daughter. She flipped on the lights in her office and sat down at her desk. The presentation slides were already loaded on her computer, but she wanted to print out extra copies, just in case. The printer sat in the copy room down the hall. Claire grabbed her laptop and headed out of her office. As she walked, she practiced her opening lines under her breath. "Good morning, board members. I'm here to show you why Whitmore Industries is ready for our biggest expansion yet." The copy room smelled different tonight. There was something sharp in the air, like when her hairdryer got too hot. Claire wrinkled her nose but didn't think much of it. Old buildings always had strange smells. She fed the papers into the printer and hit the button. While she waited, she scrolled through her phone. 3 missed calls from her father, 12 emails marked urgent. The pressure never stopped. The printer hummed and spit out page after page. Claire watched the stack grow thicker. She was always overprepared. It was the only way she knew how to be. 3 floors below, Marcus Reed pushed his cleaning cart down a different hallway. He'd been working the night shift at Whitmore Industries for 2 years now. It was quiet work, and he liked it that way. No one bothered him. No one looked down on him. He could do his job and go home to his mother. Marcus checked his watch. 9:45. He had 6 hours to clean 23 floors. It was a lot of work, but he had a system. Start at the bottom, work his way up. Hit the bathrooms first, then the offices, then vacuum the common areas. He pulled out his checklist. Written in his neat handwriting were all the tasks he needed to finish before dawn. Marcus believed in being thorough. His mama had raised him that way. "If you're going to do something, Marcus," she always said, "do it right." He started with the supply closets, checking that everything was stocked and organized. Some of the day shift workers left messes, but Marcus never complained. Everyone was fighting their own battles. As he worked, he listened to the building. Every building had its own sounds. The hum of the air conditioning, The distant rumble of traffic outside. The occasional creak of metal settling. After 2 years, Marcus knew them all. But tonight, something was different. He paused outside a supply room on the 17th floor. There was a new sound. A soft crackling, like when his mother cooked bacon in the morning. But there shouldn't be any cooking in an office building at 10 at night. Marcus pulled out his keys and unlocked the supply room door. The smell hit him immediately. Something burning, not food. Something electrical. He flicked on the light and saw it. In the corner, behind a stack of paper boxes, orange light flickered. A pile of old computer cables had caught fire. The flames were small now, but they were growing. Marcus didn't panic. That wasn't his way. He grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall and pulled the pin. White foam shot out, covering the flames. The fire hissed and died, but as Marcus stood there, catching his breath, he realized something that made his stomach drop. The room next to this one was connected, and the cables ran through the walls to other floors, including the 20th floor. Claire was still in the copy room when she smelled the smoke. At first, she thought it was coming from the printer. These old machines sometimes overheated. But when she looked around, she saw something that made her heart skip. Gray smoke was creeping under the door. Not a lot, but enough to make her nervous. She quickly gathered her printed pages and stepped into the hallway. The smoke was thicker out here. It hung in the air like fog, and it was getting worse. Claire pulled out her phone to call security, but there was no signal. These old buildings were like metal boxes. Cell towers couldn't reach inside very well. She needed to get to the stairwell. She knew it was at the end of the hall, past her office. Claire started walking, but the smoke was getting thicker. Her eyes began to water. The emergency lights flickered once, then twice. Then they went out completely. Claire was alone in the dark, with smoke filling her lungs and no way to call for help. She tried to stay calm. She was Claire Whitmore. She could handle this. She could handle anything. But as she felt her way along the wall, her confident steps turned into stumbles. The smoke was making her dizzy. Her laptop bag felt heavy on her shoulder. She reached what she thought was the stairwell door and pushed. Nothing happened. She pushed harder, putting her shoulder into it. The door was stuck, or locked, or broken. Claire's calm shattered like glass. She was trapped. "Help!" she called out. Her voice echoed in the empty hallway. "Somebody help me!" But who would hear her? The building was empty except for the janitor. There was a janitor who worked nights. Claire had seen him a few times, pushing his cart through the halls. She'd never spoken to him, never even nodded hello. She'd looked right through him, the way she looked through all the invisible people who kept her world running. "Help!" she called again, louder this time. "Please, somebody help me!" Marcus was 3 floors down when he heard it. A voice, faint but desperate, calling for help. He dropped his cleaning supplies and grabbed his radio. "Tom, you there?" he said into the device. Tom Alvarez was the building engineer. He worked days, but he was on call for emergencies. Static crackled. "I'm here, Marcus. What's going on?" "We got smoke on 17. Small electrical fire. I put it out, but I think it spread. Someone's calling for help upstairs." "I'm 15 minutes away," Tom said. "Fire department's on the way too. Get whoever's up there and get out." Marcus didn't hesitate. He knew these hallways better than anyone. He knew which stairwells connected where, which doors stayed unlocked, which routes were fastest. He also knew that 15 minutes was a long time when someone couldn't breathe. He took the service elevator to the 19th floor, then used the back stairs to reach 20. The smoke was thick up here, hanging in the air like a gray curtain. Marcus pulled his shirt up over his nose and mouth. "Where are you?" he called out. "Here, I'm here. The stairwell door won't open." Marcus followed the voice. He found her crouched by the main stairwell door, coughing and scared. Even in the dim emergency lighting and smoke, he could see this was the CEO. He'd seen her picture in the employee newsletters, Claire Whitmore, the boss's daughter. The woman who signed his paychecks but had never once looked him in the eye. None of that mattered now. "The door's not broken," Marcus said, kneeling beside her. "It's just stuck. Old building, metal expands when it gets hot. Here. He pulled out a small pry bar from his tool belt and wedged it into the door frame. With a grunt and a pop, the door swung open. Cool air rushed out from the stairwell. "Can you walk?" Marcus asked. Claire nodded, but when she tried to stand, her legs shook. The smoke and fear had taken more out of her than she realized. Marcus didn't grab her or pick her up. He'd learned a long time ago that some people didn't like to be touched, especially by someone who looked like him. Instead, he held out his arm. "Lean on me if you need to," he said. "We're going to take this slow and easy." They started toward the stairwell, but then Marcus heard something that stopped him cold. Another voice, weaker than Claire's, coming from somewhere behind them. "Help, please." Marcus looked at Claire, then back toward the smoke. Someone else was trapped up here. "Stay right here," he told Claire, guiding her to lean against the stairwell door frame. "Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back." "Wait," Claire said, grabbing his sleeve. "Don't leave me alone." "I have to," Marcus said gently. "Someone else needs help. I'll be back in 2 minutes, I promise." He handed her his jacket. "Hold this over your nose and mouth. Stay low. Count to 120, then start again. I'll be back before you get to 200. Claire wanted to argue, wanted to beg him not to leave her alone in the dark. But something in his calm, steady voice made her trust him. Marcus disappeared back into the smoke. Claire crouched by the door, counting and trying not to panic. She could hear him calling out, his voice getting fainter as he moved deeper into the floor. "Where are you? Keep talking so I can find you." "Here! I'm behind my desk!" Claire recognized that voice. Dana. Her assistant had come back to the office tonight. Marcus found Dana huddled behind her desk in the outer office area. She was conscious but scared, coughing hard from the smoke. "I came back for my purse," Dana gasped. "I forgot my purse." "It's okay," Marcus said. "Can you stand?" He helped Dana to her feet and guided her toward the stairwell. She leaned heavily on him, and he could feel her trembling. When they reached the stairwell, Claire saw them emerging from the smoke like ghosts. Her heart jumped. He'd come back, just like he promised. But more than that, he'd risked his life to save Dana, too. He could have just taken Claire and run. He could have saved himself and left Dana behind. No one would have known she was there. Instead, he'd gone back. The 3 of them made their way down the stairs. Marcus kept checking on both women, asking if they felt dizzy or if they needed to rest. His voice stayed calm and steady, even though Claire could see sweat on his forehead and soot on his clothes. When they finally pushed through the exit door into the cool night air, Claire felt her legs give out. Marcus caught her elbow and helped her sit down on the concrete steps. "Breathe," he said. "Just breathe. You're safe now." Fire trucks were pulling into the parking lot, their red lights flashing. Paramedics jumped out with oxygen tanks and medical bags. In the distance, Claire could see people with cell phones pointed at them. Someone was filming. The paramedics checked Claire and Dana quickly. Both women were okay, just shaken up and a little smoke-sick. They gave them oxygen masks and told them to take slow, deep breaths. Claire's phone, which had been useless inside the building, suddenly came back to life. It buzzed and buzzed with missed calls and messages. The top name on the screen was Harold Whitmore, her father. She looked up at Marcus, who was standing a few feet away talking to the fire chief. Even covered in soot and tired from the rescue, he looked strong and calm. He'd saved her life. He'd saved Dana's life, too. And she didn't even know his name. Claire stood up on shaky legs and walked over to him. "Excuse me," she said softly. Marcus turned toward her. Up close, she could see his face clearly for the first time. He had kind eyes and a gentle expression, but there was something guarded there, too, like he was waiting for her to disappoint him. "I need to know your name," Claire said. "Marcus Reed, ma'am." Ma'am. He called her ma'am like she was some fancy lady he had to be polite to. It made something twist in her chest. "Marcus," she repeated. "Thank you. Thank you for saving my life." Before Marcus could answer, Claire's phone started buzzing again. She could see her father's name on the screen, along with several texts from people she didn't recognize. The video of her rescue was already spreading online. Harold Whitmore arrived 20 minutes later in his black town car. He jumped out before the driver could open the door for him, his silver hair messy and his tie crooked. Claire had never seen her father look anything less than perfectly put together.
Claire!
He rushed to her, his hands checking her face and arms, like she was a child who'd fallen off her bike.
Are you hurt? Are you okay?
I'm fine, Dad. Marcus saved me. He saved Dana, too. Harold looked around until his eyes landed on Marcus, who was still talking to the fire chief. Harold studied him for a long moment, his businessman's brain already calculating angles and damage control.
We need to handle this carefully,
Harold said to Claire in a low voice.
No statements tonight. We'll figure out the right approach tomorrow.
But Claire was already pulling out her phone. Before Harold could stop her, she opened her social media and typed a simple message. Marcus Reed saved lives tonight. Hero. She hit send before she could change her mind. Harold's face went white. Claire, what did you just do? But Claire wasn't looking at her father. She was looking at Marcus, who had just seen the notification on his own phone. His expression changed from surprise to something that looked almost like worry. A woman in a sharp suit appeared beside them, Lila Benton, the company's PR director. She moved like a shark sensing blood in the water. Marcus, Lila said, approaching him with a bright smile. I'm Lila Benton from Whitmore Industries. We'd love to set up a quick interview about tonight. You're a hero. People want to hear your story. Marcus looked at her card, then at Claire, then back at Lila.
I appreciate that, ma'am, but I need to get home to my mother. She'll be worried.
Of course, we can work around your schedule. This is a wonderful opportunity to.
I said no, thank you.
Marcus' voice was polite but firm. He handed the card back to Lila. Claire felt something stir in her chest. Admiration, maybe. Or respect. Marcus Reed wasn't interested in being anyone's hero story. He just wanted to go home to his mother. Let me drive you, Claire said impulsively. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. I can take the bus, Ms. Whitmore, but thank you. He didn't want her help. He didn't want her gratitude turned into some kind of debt. Claire had never met anyone who didn't want something from her. As Marcus walked away toward the bus stop, Claire watched him go. She could still smell smoke in her hair, still feel the terror of being trapped in that dark hallway. But what she remembered most was his voice in the darkness, calm and sure, promising he'd come back. And he had. The next morning, Claire couldn't stop thinking about Marcus Reed. She'd barely slept, replaying the rescue over and over in her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the moment he'd disappeared back into the smoke to find Dana. He'd gone back. For someone he barely knew, he'd risked his own life. How many people would do that? Claire showered and tried to wash the smell of smoke out of her hair. In the mirror, she looked pale and tired. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her hands still shook a little when she held her coffee cup. Dana had texted her early that morning. He went back for me. He didn't have to, but he did. That message made Claire's chest tight with an emotion she couldn't name. Gratitude, yes, but something deeper than that, something that felt like awe. Harold called while Claire was getting dressed for work. The board meeting is postponed, he said. We need to talk about last night, about the video. The video. Claire had seen it by now. Someone had filmed Marcus helping her and Dana out of the building. The angle made it look like he'd carried her out, like some kind of movie hero. The caption read, Janitor saves CEO from office. Fire. It had been shared thousands of times already. We need to control this narrative, Harold continued. Lila has some ideas about how to handle the publicity. Handle it how? We'll figure that out. Just don't make any more statements until we talk. But Claire was already planning to do exactly the opposite. After Harold hung up, Claire looked up Marcus Reed online. She found very little. No social media accounts, no public information except his employment records, which she had access to as CEO. Marcus Anthony Reed, 30 years old, high school diploma, 2 years with Whitmore Industries, perfect attendance record, No disciplinary issues. In the emergency contact section, there was one name: Nina Reed, mother. That was it. The entire digital footprint of the man who'd saved her life. Claire made a decision that would have shocked her father. Instead of going to the office for damage control meetings, she drove to Marcus's neighborhood. She'd never been to this part of the city before. The buildings were older, some of them needing fresh paint or new windows. But the streets were clean, and she could see gardens behind some of the houses. People sat on their front steps talking to neighbors. It felt more alive than her sterile high-rise apartment. Claire parked her car and realized she had no idea which building was his. She sat there for a moment, feeling foolish. What was she even doing here? What was she going to say? Her phone buzzed with another text from Dana. "The reporters are asking about Marcus. I told them to call the company PR office." Reporters, of course. The story was getting bigger. Claire was about to turn around and drive home when she saw him. Marcus was walking down the sidewalk carrying 2 bags of groceries. He moved with the same calm confidence she remembered from the night before. She got out of her car and called his name. "Marcus!" He turned and she saw surprise flash across his face. "Ms. Whitmore, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to thank you. Properly." Claire felt nervous, which was strange. She never felt nervous talking to people. "And I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine." Marcus shifted the grocery bags in his hands. "You didn't need to come all this way." "Yes, I did." Claire took a breath. "You saved my life. You saved Dana's life. You risked everything for 2 people you barely knew." Marcus looked uncomfortable. Anyone would have done the same thing. "No," Claire said firmly. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have saved themselves and run." "Maybe." Marcus glanced toward one of the apartment buildings. "I should get these groceries upstairs. My mom's waiting for them." Of course. Claire felt awkward, like she was keeping him from something important. "I just wanted you to know that what you did mattered. It mattered to me." Marcus studied her face for a moment. "Why does it feel like there's a but coming?" Claire blinked. "What do you mean?" "You came all the way down here to thank me in person. That's not something most CEOs do for the help." He wasn't mean about it, just honest. "So what do you really want?" The question caught Claire off guard. She realized she didn't have a good answer. She didn't want anything from Marcus. She just wanted to... what? To see him again? To make sure he was real? "I don't want anything," she said finally. "I just wanted to see you." Something in Marcus's expression softened slightly. "Okay." They stood there for a moment, not sure what to say next. Claire could hear the sound of kids playing in a nearby yard, the distant hum of traffic. Normal life continuing all around them. "The video is everywhere," Claire said. "People are calling you a hero." "I know." Marcus didn't sound happy about it. "Is that a problem?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "I've been invisible for 30 years, Miss Whitmore. Being invisible keeps you safe." Claire felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Safe from what?" "From people who want to use you. From people who want to turn you into something you're not." Marcus looked directly at her. "From people who want to make themselves feel better by having a grateful black man to pat on the head." The words hit Claire like a slap. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" "I don't know," Marcus said honestly, "but I've seen it before." Claire wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but she couldn't, because part of her wondered if he might be right. Her phone buzzed again. Harold, probably, or Lila. The machinery of publicity and damage control grinding into motion. "I should go," Claire said. "Yeah." Marcus nodded. "You should." As Claire walked back to her car, she heard Marcus call her name. "Miss Whitmore?" She turned. "Thank you for the post last night, for not letting me disappear." Claire felt her throat get tight. "Thank you for not letting me die." She drove home in silence, Marcus's words echoing in her head. He'd been invisible for 30 years. What did that feel like? What did it do to a person to be looked through, ignored, treated like furniture? And now, because of one night and one act of courage, he was visible, whether he wanted to be or not. Claire realized she might have just made Marcus Reed's life much more complicated. That evening, Claire's apartment felt too quiet. She stood by her big windows, looking out at the city lights, thinking about a man who carried groceries to his mother and asked her tough questions. She thought about invisible people and grateful black men and the space between gratitude and something deeper. She thought about how Marcus had looked at her when he asked what she really wanted. And for the first time in her life, Claire Whitmore didn't have an answer. The next morning brought chaos to Whitmore Industries. Claire arrived at the office to find reporters waiting in the lobby, their cameras pointed at anyone who walked through the doors. Security guards stood nervously nearby, unsure how to handle the media attention. Claire slipped in through the parking garage entrance, avoiding the crowd. She took the service elevator to the 20th floor, the same route Marcus probably used every night. The hallway still smelled faintly of smoke and cleaning chemicals. Dana was already at her desk, fielding phone calls. She looked up when Claire walked by. 37 interview requests, Dana said, holding up a stack of messages. Everyone wants to talk to Marcus. And you. What did you tell them? That all media requests go through Lila. Dana lowered her voice. But some of them are getting pushy. They went to Marcus's neighborhood this morning. Claire felt her stomach drop. They did what? Channel 7 News knocked on doors, asking neighbors about him. Mrs. Patterson from accounting lives on his street. She said there were 3 news vans parked outside his building at 6 a.m. Claire sank into her office chair. This was exactly what Marcus had been afraid of. The attention he didn't want. The invasion of privacy he couldn't control. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Marcus. Can we talk?" Claire's heart jumped. She typed back quickly. "Yes. Where?" "Not at your office. Too many reporters. Park on 5th Street, near the fountain. 1 hour." Claire grabbed her keys and told Dana she'd be back later. She drove to the park, her mind racing. What did Marcus want to talk about? Was he angry about the reporters? Did he blame her for posting that message? She found him sitting on a bench near the fountain, wearing jeans and a plain gray t-shirt. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much either. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said when she sat down beside him. "Of course. I'm sorry about the reporters. I didn't know they'd—" "It's not your fault." Marcus watched a group of kids playing on the swings nearby. "Well, not completely." Claire felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You're right. The post I made started this. I should have asked you first." "Why didn't you?" The question was simple, but Claire struggled to answer it. "I don't know. I was grateful. I wanted people to know what you did." "But you didn't ask what I wanted." "No." Claire looked down at her hands. "I didn't." Marcus was quiet for a moment. A little girl ran past their bench, chasing a red balloon. Her mother followed, laughing. Normal life, continuing around them while their world felt turned upside down. "My neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, has lived in our building for 40 years, Marcus said finally. This morning, she couldn't leave for work because there were so many reporters blocking the entrance. She's 83 years old, Miss Whitmore. She shouldn't have to deal with cameras in her face because some strangers decided her neighbor is a hero. The guilt hit Claire like a physical weight. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't think—" "No, you didn't." Marcus's voice wasn't angry, just sad. "But I understand why you posted it. You were scared and grateful, and you wanted to do something good. But I made things worse." "Yeah, you did." They sat in silence, watching the fountain spray water into the air. Claire felt smaller than she had in years. She was used to fixing problems, to taking charge and making things better. But this time, her help had only caused more trouble. "What can I do?" she asked finally. How can I fix this? I don't know if you can. Marcus leaned back on the bench. The story's out there now. It's going to spread whether we like it or not. The company has good lawyers. We could ask the news stations to respect your privacy. Marcus gave her a look that was almost amused. You think lawyers are going to keep people away from a good story? A poor black janitor saves rich white CEO? That's pure gold to them. The way he said it made Claire wince. She'd never thought about their story in those terms, but of course that's how other people would see it. All. The complicated layers of race and class that she'd been trying not to think about. I hate that, she said quietly. Hate what? That people will make this about our skin color instead of about who you are as a person. Marcus turned to look at her directly. Miss Whitmore, can I ask you something? When you see me, what do you see? Claire blinked, confused by the question. I see Marcus, the man who saved my life. Before that night, when you saw me in the hallways at work, what did you see? Claire opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. The honest answer was painful. I didn't see you at all. Right, I was invisible. Just another black man pushing a cleaning cart through your world. Marcus wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact. But now you see me. Why? Because you saved my life. So I had to nearly die pulling you out of a fire for you to notice I existed? The question hung in the air between them. Claire felt tears prick her eyes because she knew he was right. She'd walked past Marcus hundreds of times over 2 years and never once wondered about his name, his family, his dreams. Yes, she whispered, and I'm ashamed of that. Marcus nodded slowly. Good. Shame means you can learn. A jogger ran past their bench, earbuds in, focused on his route. Claire watched him go and wondered if she would have seen him either, before this week. How many people did she look right through every day? My mother wants to meet you, Marcus said suddenly. Claire looked at him in surprise. She does? She saw the news coverage. She said any woman her son risks his life for must be pretty special. Marcus's mouth quirked up in a small smile. She doesn't know that you're the type who usually doesn't see people like us. I want to meet her too, Claire said quickly. I'd like that very much. Why? Another simple question that made Claire think. Because she raised the man who saved my life. Because she matters to you. Because I want to understand who you are. Marcus studied her face for a long moment. Okay, Sunday dinner, 6 o'clock. But Miss Whitmore? Claire, please call me Claire. Claire, my mother is not some sweet old black lady who's going to make you feel good about yourself. She's smart, and she's tough, and she's protective of her son. If you're coming to her table, come ready to be honest. Claire nodded. I understand. Do you? Because she's going to ask you what your intentions are. She's going to want to know if you're planning to use this story to make yourself look good, or if you actually care about me as a person. What should I tell her? The truth, Marcus said. Whatever that is. He stood up from the bench and Claire felt a moment of panic. She wasn't ready for this conversation to end. Marcus, wait. Can I ask you something now? He sat back down. Okay. Why did you go back for Dana? You could have just gotten me out. No one would have known she was there. Marcus was quiet for so long that Claire thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. When I was 12, our apartment building caught fire. Small fire, kitchen accident, but the smoke was bad. My dad was at work, so it was just me and my mom. We got out okay, but Mrs. Williams on the 3rd floor didn't. She was old, and her legs were bad, and she couldn't get down the stairs fast enough. Claire held her breath. The firemen got her out, but she died in the hospital 2 days later, smoke in her lungs. Marcus stared at the fountain. I used to think about what would have happened if I'd been older, stronger, if I could have helped her. You were just a child. Yeah, but Tuesday night, I wasn't a child anymore. Dana was trapped, and I could help her, so I did. He looked at Claire. It wasn't heroic, it was just right. Claire felt something shift in her chest. This man, who had been invisible to her for 2 years, who she'd never bothered to see or know, had more integrity in his little finger than most of the board members she worked with every day. "I'm going to do better," she said. "I promise you. I'm going to pay attention to people. All people." "Don't make promises you can't keep," Marcus said gently. "Just try. That's all any of us can do." They exchanged phone numbers before Marcus left. Claire sat on the bench for a while after he was gone, thinking about 12-year-old Marcus watching his elderly neighbor die, and 30-year-old Marcus making sure the same thing didn't happen to someone else. When she finally drove back to the office, the reporters were still there. This time, Claire didn't sneak in through the parking garage. She walked through the front door, past the cameras, and let them take their pictures. She had nothing to hide. Not anymore. Harold was waiting in her office when she got upstairs, pacing back and forth behind her desk like a caged animal. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "Lila's been trying to reach you for 2 hours. We have a crisis management plan to discuss." "I was talking to Marcus." Harold's face went red. "You went to see him again? Claire, what are you thinking? Every time you interact with that man publicly, you make this story bigger." "His name is Marcus Reed, Dad. And he's not that man. He's the person who saved my life." "I understand that you're grateful." "Do you?" Claire sat down at her desk and faced her father. "Because I don't think you do. I don't think you understand what it feels like to be trapped in a dark hallway, thinking you're going to die, and then have someone risk their life to save yours." Harold's expression softened slightly. "You're right. I don't understand that. But I do understand business, and I understand public relations. This story is spinning out of control. Maybe it needs to." "What does that mean?" Claire pulled up the company's employee directory on her computer. Page after page of names and faces, security guards, maintenance staff, cleaning crews, cafeteria workers. How many of these people had she ever really seen? "Dad, do you know the name of the woman who cleans your office?" Harold looked confused. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Do you know her name?" No, I don't." "Her name is Rosa Martinez. She has 3 kids and goes to night school to become a nurse. She's been cleaning your office for 4 years. Claire looked up at her father. "I only know that because I asked Dana to find out this morning." "Claire, I don't understand what you're trying to say." "I'm saying that maybe this story spinning out of control is a good thing. Maybe people should know about Marcus Reed. Maybe they should know about Rosa Martinez and everyone else who keeps our world running while we pretend they don't exist." Harold sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. "You want to turn this into some kind of social justice campaign?" "No, I want to turn this into basic human decency." Before Harold could respond, Lila knocked on the office door. She entered with an armful of papers and a laptop covered in sticky notes. "We need to make a decision about the media strategy," Lila said, setting her materials down on Claire's desk. "The story's going national. Good Morning America wants to interview both of you tomorrow." "Both of us?" Claire asked. "You and Marcus. They want to do the interview here at the building, recreate the rescue route. Very dramatic." Lila pulled up a news website on her laptop. "Look at these numbers. The original video has been viewed 2 million times. The follow-up stories are trending on every major platform." Claire stared at the screen. There was Marcus's face, next to hers, under headlines like "Hero Janitor Saves CEO" and "When Class Lines Disappear in Crisis." "This is Marcus's worst nightmare," Claire said quietly. "Are you kidding?" Lila looked genuinely confused. "This is the opportunity of a lifetime for him. Book deals, movie rights, speaking engagements. He could quit his job and make a living telling the story." "He doesn't want to quit his job. He doesn't want book deals. He wants to be left alone." Harold leaned forward. "Claire, be realistic. The man works as a janitor. This could change his entire life for the better." "Better according to who?" Claire stood up and walked to her window. Down in the parking lot, she could see more news vans arriving. What if he likes his life? What if he's proud of his work? What if he doesn't need us to save him from poverty because we've decided his job isn't good enough? Lila and Harold exchanged glances. Sweetie, Lila said carefully, I think the smoke inhalation might have affected you more than we thought. You're not thinking clearly about the opportunities here. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. Claire turned back to face them. Marcus didn't ask to be a hero. He didn't ask for attention. He was just doing his job, and when an emergency happened, he did the right thing. Now we're trying to turn him into a media circus because it makes a good story. It's not just a good story, Harold said. It's good for the company. It shows our values, our commitment to all employees. Our commitment to all employees? Claire laughed, but there was no humor in it. Dad, until Tuesday night, I didn't even know Marcus's name. I've been CEO for 3 years and I never once bothered to learn the names of the people who clean our offices. That's not commitment, that's willful blindness. So what do you want to do? Lila asked. Turn down all the interview requests? Let the story die. Claire thought about Marcus sitting on that park bench, talking about his 83-year-old neighbor who couldn't leave her building because of reporters. She thought about his quiet pride, his refusal to be turned into anyone's feel-good story. I want to protect him, she said finally, even if it means protecting him from us. That evening, Claire drove to Marcus's neighborhood again, but this time, she didn't park and get out of her car. She sat at the corner and watched. There were still 2 news vans parked outside his building. A reporter stood on the sidewalk talking into a camera. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered on the opposite corner, some holding signs that said, "Leave Marcus alone." Claire pulled out her phone and called him. It's Claire. I can see your building. Are you okay in there? We're fine. Me and my mom are staying put until they get bored and leave. I'm going to fix this. How? Claire looked at the circus surrounding Marcus's home, at the reporters turning his private life into public entertainment. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find a way. Claire? Marcus's voice was softer now. Thank you for trying. Not many people in your position would care. I'm learning that my position doesn't mean much if I can't protect the people who matter. After she hung up, Claire sat in her car and made a list on her phone. Not a business plan or a PR strategy, but a simple list of things she could do. Learn the names of all the night shift workers. Find out if Marcus needs better health insurance. Ask Dana to research salary equity across all departments. Figure out how to make the reporters go away. Be worthy of Marcus's respect. The last item made her pause. She'd spent her whole career trying to earn her father's respect, the board's respect, the business world's respect. But somehow, earning Marcus Reed's respect felt more important than all of those things combined. As she drove home, Claire made another decision. Sunday dinner with Marcus and his mother was 3 days away. She was going to show up ready to be honest, just like Marcus had said, even if the truth made her uncomfortable, especially then. The next morning brought both good news and bad news. The good news was that the reporters had finally left Marcus's building. The bad news was that they'd moved to Claire's apartment complex instead. Claire discovered this when she tried to leave for work and found a small crowd of people with cameras and microphones waiting by the elevator in her lobby. Miss Whitmore, can you tell us about your relationship with Marcus Reed? Is it true you're planning to promote him? How does it feel to owe your life to a minimum wage worker? Claire pushed through them without answering and made it to her car, but their questions followed her. How did it feel? How did it feel to realize that her life had been saved by someone she'd considered beneath her notice? It felt like shame, and gratitude, and something else she was still trying to understand. At the office, Claire called an all-hands meeting for the afternoon. Every employee, from the executive team to the maintenance staff, was invited to the main conference room. What are you planning to say? Harold asked as they walked toward the meeting. I'm planning to tell the truth. The conference room was packed. Claire looked out at faces she recognized and many she didn't. She saw Rosa Martinez, the woman who cleaned Harold's office. She saw Tom Alvarez, the building engineer who'd coordinated the emergency response. She saw dozens of people who kept the company running while staying invisible. Most of you know about what happened Tuesday night, Claire began. Marcus Reed, one of our night maintenance staff, saved my life during the electrical fire. He also saved Dana Kim, my assistant. A few people clapped, but Claire held up her hand. But I'm not here to talk about Marcus as a hero. I'm here to talk about something else. She took a breath. I'm here to talk about the fact that Marcus had worked in this building for 2 years before Tuesday night, and I had never once learned his name. The room went very quiet. I walked past him in these hallways hundreds of times. He kept my workplace clean and safe every single night, and I never saw him. Not really. Claire's voice grew stronger. That's on me. That's my failure as a leader and as a human being. She could see Harold shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Lila was taking notes frantically. Marcus didn't save my life because he wanted attention or recognition. He saved my life because he's a good man who did the right thing when it mattered. And now he's dealing with reporters and cameras and invasion of his privacy because our society thinks it's remarkable when working-class people show basic human decency. A murmur went through the room. Some people nodded. So here's what we're going to do differently, Claire continued. Starting today, I'm going to learn the name of every person who works in this building. I'm going to make sure everyone has health insurance that actually covers their needs. I'm going to review our wages to make sure we're paying people fairly for the work they do. More murmurs, these ones surprised and pleased. And I'm going to make sure that no one who works here has to risk their life to be seen as valuable. After the meeting, Claire found Marcus in the break room. He was sitting at a small table, eating lunch from a brown bag and reading a book. How long have you been here? Claire asked. About an hour. I came in early for the meeting. Marcus looked up from his book. That was quite a speech. Did I say anything wrong? No, you said things that needed saying. Marcus marked his place in his book and closed it. But saying them is the easy part. What's the hard part? Following through, making real changes instead of just feeling good about yourself for giving a nice speech. Claire sat down across from him. You don't think I'll follow through. I think you mean well, but meaning well and doing well are different things. Give me a chance to prove it. Marcus studied her face. Sunday dinner, you still planning to come? Yes. Good. My mom's making her famous pot roast, and she's been thinking of questions to ask you. Claire felt nervous butterflies in her stomach. What kind of questions? The kind that matter. Marcus picked up his book again. Fair warning. She's going to want to know if you're serious about changing, or if this is just guilt talking. What should I tell her? Tell her the truth, Marcus said, echoing what he told her before. Whatever that is. As Claire walked back to her office, she realized she had 2 days to figure out what the truth actually was. 2 days to understand her own motivations, her own heart. 2 days to decide if she was ready to be worthy of Marcus Reed's respect and his mother's pot roast. Sunday came too fast and not fast enough. Claire spent Saturday night lying awake, staring at the ceiling and rehearsing conversations in her head. Every imagined scenario ended with Marcus's mother seeing right through her, calling her out as another rich white woman who wanted to feel better about herself. Maybe that's exactly what she was. Claire got up early and drove to the grocery store. She wanted to bring something to dinner, but she had no idea what. Flowers seemed too formal. Wine felt presumptuous. She wandered the aisles for 20 minutes before settling on a simple apple pie from the bakery section. As she drove toward Marcus's neighborhood, Claire's phone rang. Harold's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer, she told herself. But her hand moved to the phone anyway.
Claire, where are you?
Harold's voice was tight with worry.
Lila says you turned down 3 more interview requests yesterday.
I'm busy today, Dad.
Busy with what? We need to capitalize on this momentum while the story's still hot.
Claire pulled over to the side of the road. Dad, Marcus doesn't want to do interviews. He's made that very clear.
What Marcus wants isn't the point. This is bigger than him now. It's about the company image, about showing our values.
Our values? Claire felt her temper rising. What values are those exactly? The ones where I ignored him for 2 years until he saved my life?
Claire, you're being
emotional about this. Good. Maybe I should be emotional about this. Maybe feeling something is better than calculating everything. Harold was quiet for a moment. Where are you going today? Claire looked through her windshield at the neighborhood around her. Kids played on sidewalks while their parents sat on front steps, talking and laughing. It felt like a real community, something she'd never experienced in her sterile high-rise world. I'm having dinner with Marcus and his mother. You're what? Harold's voice shot up an octave. Claire, that's not appropriate. You can't socialize with employees like that. It blurs professional boundaries. Maybe some boundaries need to be blurred. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're not thinking clearly. You're getting too personally involved. Claire thought about Marcus going back into the smoke for Dana, about him refusing interview requests so he could go home to his worried mother, about the quiet dignity in his voice when he told her she'd made his life more complicated. You're right, she said finally. I am getting personally involved, and maybe that's the first smart thing I've done in years. She hung up before Harold could respond. Marcus's building was a 3-story brick structure that looked like it had been built in the 1940s. The front steps were swept clean, and someone had planted flowers in large pots by the entrance. Claire could see lace curtains in some of the windows and hear music playing somewhere inside. Claire climbed to the second floor and found apartment 2B. She took a deep breath and knocked. The woman who opened the door was not what Claire had expected. Nina Reed was small but commanding, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in an elegant bun and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a simple blue dress and an apron that said, "World's Best Mom" in faded letters. You must be Claire, Nina said, looking her up and down. Come in, child. Marcus is in the kitchen mashing potatoes. The apartment was small but immaculate. The living room held a couch covered with a handmade quilt, bookshelves lined with worn paperbacks, and a coffee table stacked with library books about gardening and cooking. Family photos covered one wall, Marcus at various ages, graduation pictures, holidays. Your home is beautiful, Claire said, meaning it. It's small, but it's ours, Nina replied. Have a seat. Marcus will be out in a minute. Claire perched on the edge of the couch, still holding the apple pie. Nina settled into a well-worn armchair and studied Claire with the same direct gaze she'd inherited from her son. So, Nina said, you're the woman my son nearly died for. He didn't nearly die. Child, don't argue with me about my own son. I've been listening to him cough for 4 days from that smoke. He nearly died. Nina's voice was matter-of-fact, but her eyes were fierce. Question is, was it worth it? Claire felt heat rise in her cheeks. I hope so. I mean, I think any life is worth saving. That's not what I asked. Nina leaned forward. I asked if your life was worth my son risking his. If you're the kind of person who deserves that sacrifice. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Claire could hear Marcus moving around in the kitchen, the clink of dishes, the sound of water running. Normal sounds of a normal Sunday dinner that felt anything but normal. I don't know, Claire said finally. I hope I can become that kind of person. Nina nodded slowly. Good answer. Honest answer. Marcus appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He'd changed into khakis and a button-down shirt that made him look younger somehow. Mom, are you giving our guest the 3rd degree already? Just getting acquainted, Nina said innocently. Claire brought pie. You didn't have to bring anything, Marcus said, but he smiled as he took the box from her hands. Store-bought, Claire admitted. I'm not much of a baker. Neither am I, Marcus said. Mom's the cook in this family. Nina stood up and smoothed her apron. Dinner's ready. Marcus, get the good plates down. The dining room was barely big enough for the small round table, but it felt warm and welcoming. Nina had set the table with mismatched china that looked like it had been collected over many years. A single candle flickered in the center next to a small vase of daisies. The pot roast was the best thing Claire had ever tasted. Tender meat fell apart at the touch of her fork, and the vegetables were perfectly seasoned. The mashed potatoes were creamy and rich, obviously made from scratch. "This is incredible," Claire said after her first few bites. "I haven't had a home-cooked meal like this in years." "You don't cook?" Nina asked. "I order a lot of takeout. My schedule doesn't leave much time for cooking." "There's always time for cooking if you make it a priority," Nina said gently. "Food made with your own hands feeds the soul as much as the body." Claire thought about her sterile kitchen with its expensive appliances that she never used. Even when she was home, she usually ate standing up at her counter, scrolling through emails on her phone. "Mom taught me to cook when I was 8, Marcus said. Said any man who couldn't feed himself was only half a man. And any woman who can't take care of herself is only half a woman," Nina added, looking pointedly at Claire. "I can take care of myself," Claire said, then realized how that sounded. "I mean, financially, professionally." "But can you take care of your heart?" Nina asked. "Can you take care of the people who matter to you?" The question made Claire's throat tight. "I'm learning." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Claire found herself relaxing despite the intensity of Nina's questions. There was something peaceful about sitting around this small table, sharing a meal that someone had made with love and attention. "Marcus tells me you want to make changes at your company," Nina said eventually. "Yes, I realize that I've been blind to a lot of things, a lot of people." "Blind is one thing, willfully ignorant is another." Nina's voice was gentle but firm. "Which one were you?" Claire set down her fork, another direct question that demanded an honest answer. "Both, I think. I was blind at first, but then I chose to stay that way because it was easier." "Why was it easier?" "Because if I didn't see the problems, I didn't have to fix them. If I didn't know people were struggling, I didn't have to feel guilty about having so much." Marcus looked up from his plate. "And now?" "Now I can't unsee it. I can't pretend anymore that my success exists in a vacuum, that it doesn't depend on other people's work and sacrifice." Nina reached across the table and patted Claire's hand. "Good. Guilt is useful if it leads to action, worthless if it just makes you feel bad." After dinner, Marcus offered to show Claire around the neighborhood while Nina cleaned up. They walked down quiet streets lined with small houses and apartment buildings, passing kids playing basketball in driveways and families sitting on front porches. "Your mother is amazing," Claire said as they walked. "She likes you." "How can you tell? She spent the whole dinner asking me hard questions," Marcus laughed. "If she didn't like you, she would have asked harder questions, and she would have served leftovers instead of making pot roast." They stopped at a small park with a playground and a few benches. An elderly man was feeding pigeons while his granddaughter played on the swings. Normal Sunday evening activities that Claire had never taken time to notice before. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said as they sat down on a bench. "Sure." "Why did you invite me to dinner? Really?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching a little girl on the swings. "Because I wanted to see if you were real." "Real?" "The woman who came to my neighborhood to apologize. The woman who stood up in that meeting and admitted she'd been wrong. I wanted to see if that was the real you, or just guilt talking." "What's the verdict?" "Still deciding." Marcus turned to look at her. "But my mom likes you, and her judgment is better than mine." "What would convince you that I'm real?" "Time, actions, proof that this isn't just a phase you're going through because you feel bad." Claire nodded. "Fair enough." They walked back to the apartment building as the sun was setting. The porch lights were coming on, and Claire could smell dinner cooking in various apartments. It felt like a real community, the kind she'd never experienced in her world of doormen and private elevators. "Thank you for today," Claire said as they reached Marcus's building. "For dinner, for letting me into your life a little bit. Thank you for coming, for being honest with my mom." Claire hesitated, then decided to take a risk. "Marcus, I know you don't want publicity or attention. But would you be willing to help me learn? To To teach me things I should know about the people who work for me? What kind of things? Real things. What it's like to work night shifts. How much health insurance actually costs. What it feels like to be invisible. Claire took a breath. I want to understand so I can do better. But I need help. Marcus studied her face in the porch light. That's a big request. I know, and you have every right to say no. I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes yet either. Marcus pulled out his keys. Give me some time to think about it. Of course. As Claire drove home, she thought about the evening. Nina's direct questions, the warmth of their small dining room, the feeling of being part of something real for the first time in years. She thought about Marcus asking if she was real, and realized she was still figuring out the answer to that question herself. Her phone was full of missed calls when she got home. Harold, Lila, 3 different reporters, and someone from the mayor's office. The world was still spinning around the story of the CEO and the janitor, but tonight it felt distant and unimportant. What mattered was the taste of homemade pot roast and the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she was learning how to be a better human being. The next morning brought a crisis that tested all of Claire's good intentions. She arrived at the office to find Harold and Lila waiting in the conference room with grim expressions and a stack of newspapers. We have a problem, Lila said without preamble. A big one. She spread the newspapers across the table. Every major paper had some version of the same story. CEO's secret romance with hero janitor? The photos showed Claire leaving Marcus's building the night before, and someone had managed to get a shot through the window of them having dinner. How did they? Claire started. Neighbor with a camera phone, Harold said tightly. Sold the pictures for $5,000. Claire stared at the headlines. Secret romance? We had dinner. With his mother. That's not how it looks, Lila said. And it's not how the internet is interpreting it. The story's going viral again, but this time with a very different angle. She pulled up social media on her laptop. The comments were brutal. Rich white woman thinks she owns her black savior now. This is gross, she's fetishizing him. Poor guy saves her life, and now she won't leave him alone. When keeping it real goes wrong. Claire felt sick reading them. This is exactly what Marcus was afraid of. It gets worse, Harold said. The board is meeting this afternoon. They're not happy about the optics of you having personal relationships with employees. It wasn't a personal relationship, it was dinner. Claire, you have to distance yourself from this man, Harold said urgently. Issue a statement clarifying that it was just a thank you dinner, that there's nothing romantic happening. Kill this story before it kills your career. Claire looked at the newspapers again. In one photo, she and Marcus were walking side by side down his street. In another, they were sitting on the park bench talking. Innocent moments twisted into something scandalous by strangers with cameras and cruel imaginations. What does Marcus think about this? She asked. We don't know, Lila said. He's not answering his phone. Claire's heart sank. Of course he wasn't answering. He was probably hiding in his apartment again, dealing with another round of unwanted attention because of her. I need to talk to him, Claire said, standing up. No. Harold grabbed her arm. You absolutely cannot be seen with him again, not until this dies down. So I'm supposed to abandon him, pretend he doesn't exist? You're supposed to protect your career and his reputation, Lila said. The best thing for both of you is distance. Claire pulled free from Harold's grip. The best thing for both of us is the truth. The truth doesn't matter, Harold said desperately. Perception matters. And the perception right now is that you're either exploiting him or sleeping with him. The words hit Claire like a slap. Is that really what you think? That I would exploit someone or sleep with them out of gratitude? I think you're not thinking clearly, Harold said. I think this whole situation has confused you emotionally. Claire looked at her father and her PR director, both of whom were more concerned about damage control than about the human being who was being hurt by all of this. She thought about Marcus's quiet dignity, his mother's fierce protection, the warmth of their small apartment. "You're right," she said finally. "I am confused emotionally. I'm confused about how I lived 30 years without caring about other people's feelings. I'm confused about how I built a career on the backs of people I refuse to see. And I'm really confused about how the two people who are supposed to care about me most can sit here and talk about a good man like he's a problem to be managed." Harold's face went pale. "Claire, I'm going to talk to Marcus, and then I'm going to figure out how to fix this mess without throwing him under the bus." "If you leave this building to see him, the board will vote you out this afternoon," Harold said quietly. "I won't be able to stop them." Claire paused at the conference room door. For 30 years, she'd done everything Harold wanted. She built her life around earning his approval, the board's approval, the business world's respect. "Then I guess I'll have to live with that," she said. She walked out, leaving Harold and Lila staring after her in shock. Marcus wasn't at his apartment. His neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, told Claire he'd left early that morning with a small suitcase. "All those reporters came back," Mrs. Johnson said sadly. "Poor boy couldn't even leave for work without cameras in his face." "Did he say where he was going?" "His mama's sister lives upstate. He probably went there to wait for this nonsense to blow over." Claire sat in her car outside Marcus's building, feeling lower than she'd ever felt in her life. She'd dragged him into this circus. She'd exposed his private life to strangers. She'd made his simple act of heroism into something twisted and ugly. Her phone rang. Dana's name appeared on the screen. "Claire, where are you? Your father is having some kind of breakdown. The board meeting moved up to noon." "I'm trying to find Marcus." "Claire, you can't. The reporters are everywhere. Someone got a picture of you at his building this morning. It's already online." Claire closed her eyes. Every move she made to help Marcus seemed to make things worse for him. "What should I do, Dana?" "Come back. Face the board. Fight for your job. You can't help Marcus if you lose everything." Dana was right. Claire knew she was right. But the thought of sitting in a boardroom talking about damage control while Marcus was hiding somewhere, his life turned upside down because of her, made her feel sick. "Okay," she said finally. "I'm coming back." The board meeting was as brutal as Claire had expected. 12 men in expensive suits sat around the polished table, looking at her with expressions ranging from disappointment to barely contained anger. "This has gone too far, Claire," said Robert Chen, the vice chairman. "When we agreed to promote you to CEO, we understood there would be challenges, but this level of personal scandal is unacceptable." "What scandal?" Claire asked, keeping her voice level. "Having dinner with a man who saved my life?" "You know it's not that simple," said another board member. "The optics are terrible. A white CEO pursuing a relationship with a black employee, it looks exploitative at best, fetishistic at worst." Claire felt her temper flare. What looks exploitative is a room full of white men deciding what's appropriate for a black man they've never met and don't care to know. The room went dead silent. Harold cleared his throat. "Claire, perhaps you'd like to take a moment to—" "No." Claire stood up. "I'd like to take a moment to tell you all exactly what I think." She walked to the head of the table and looked each board member in the eye. "Marcus Reed has worked in this building for 2 years. He's never been late, never called in sick, never caused a single problem. He saved my life and my assistant's life without hesitation. He's refused every interview request, every opportunity to capitalize on his heroism. He wants nothing from us except to be left alone." "Which is exactly why this relationship is inappropriate," Robert began. "There is no relationship," Claire's voice rose. "There's a man who did something brave and decent, and a woman who's trying to learn from his example. There's gratitude and respect and an attempt at understanding. If that threatens you, if basic human decency looks scandalous to you, then the problem isn't with Marcus Reed or with me." The problem is with you. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Furthermore, Claire continued, if you're so concerned about optics, let me give you some different ones to consider. What does it look like when a company's board of directors tries to silence and shame the man who saved their CEO's life? What does it look like when we punish someone for being a hero because his skin color makes us uncomfortable? That's not what this is about, Robert said, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Claire pulled up the news coverage on the conference room screen. Look at these headlines. Look at these comments. This isn't about protecting anyone. This is about fear. Fear of what it means when the invisible people in our lives turn out to be more decent than we are. Harold stood up slowly. Claire, I think you should resign. Take some time to get perspective on this situation. The words hung in the air. Claire looked at her father, the man who had trained her for this job, who had pushed her to be strong and successful and ruthless. You want me to resign because I had dinner with a good man? I want you to resign because you've lost sight of what's important. Claire nodded slowly. You're right. I have lost sight of what's important. For 30 years, I thought what was important was this job, this title, your approval. I thought what mattered was winning and looking good and never showing weakness. She walked back to her chair and picked up her purse. But I've learned something in the past week. What's important is being the kind of person who deserves to be saved. What's important is seeing people, really seeing them, and treating them with dignity and respect. What's important is doing the right thing even when it costs you something. Claire, Harold started. I resign, Claire said clearly. Effective immediately. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Harold's face went white. Claire walked to the door, then turned back one last time. And for the record, I'm proud to call Marcus Reed my friend. Any of you would be lucky to earn his respect the way I'm trying to. She left them sitting there in their expensive suits, arguing among themselves about damage control and succession plans. For the first time in years, Claire Whitmore felt free. Claire drove aimlessly through the city after leaving the board meeting. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from reporters, but she didn't answer. She felt strangely calm, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. She was unemployed for the first time in her adult life. She'd just thrown away everything she'd worked for since college, and somehow she felt lighter than she had in years. Her phone rang again. This time it was Dana. Claire, what did you do? Dana's voice was frantic. Harold just called an emergency meeting. The whole office is buzzing. Did you really resign? I did. Why? We could have fought this. We could have figured out a way to manage the story. Claire pulled into a coffee shop parking lot. Because I realized something, Dana. I spent my whole career managing stories instead of living truth. I'm done with that. What are you going to do now? I'm going to find Marcus. Claire, be careful. The reporters are still... I don't care about the reporters anymore. After hanging up, Claire sat in her car and thought about where Marcus might have gone. His aunt upstate, Mrs. Johnson, had said. But Claire didn't know the aunt's name or address. Then she remembered something. During their conversation at the park, Marcus had mentioned that his aunt lived near a lake where he used to go fishing as a kid. He'd said it was about 2 hours north, near a town called Millbrook. It wasn't much to go on, but it was something. Claire stopped at a gas station and bought a road map. She traced the route north with her finger, looking for lakes near Millbrook. There were 3 possibilities. She'd have to try them all. The first lake yielded nothing but a confused park ranger who'd never heard of Marcus Reed. The second was a private community with a gate guard who refused to give out resident information. The third lake was surrounded by small cabins and cottages. Claire drove slowly around the winding road, looking for any sign of Marcus or his aunt. She was about to give up when she saw a familiar figure sitting on a dock, fishing rod in hand. Marcus looked up as she approached, his expression unreadable. He was wearing jeans and an old fishing shirt, and he looked more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. You found me, he said simply. It took me 3 tries. Claire sat down on the dock beside him, careful not to scare away any fish. How are you holding up?
Better now that I'm away from the cameras.
Marcus cast his line again.
My aunt's place is peaceful, good for thinking.
They sat in silence for a moment, watching the water ripple in the late afternoon sun. A loon called somewhere across the lake, its voice echoing off the trees. I saw the news, Marcus said eventually. You resigned. Yes. Why? Claire picked up a small stone and skipped it across the water. It bounced twice before sinking. Because they wanted me to throw you under the bus to save my job. And I realized that any job that requires me to betray a friend isn't worth having. Marcus set down his fishing rod and turned to look at her. Friend? I hope so, if you'll have me. Claire, you don't even know me, not really. I know enough. I know you're kind and brave and honest. I know you love your mother and you do your job well and you make hard choices look easy. Claire met his eyes. I know I want to be more like you. Marcus was quiet for a long time. A fish jumped in the distance, sending ripples across the calm water. The morning after the fire, Marcus said finally, I woke up and for a few minutes I forgot it had happened. Then I remembered, and I thought maybe it would all just go away, back to normal. But it didn't. No, and part of me was angry about that. Angry that doing the right thing had to become such a big deal. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made your life complicated. You didn't make it complicated. The world did. Marcus picked up his rod again. But you know what I realized while I've been sitting here fishing? What? Complicated isn't always bad. Sometimes complicated means things are changing, and maybe some things needed to change. Claire felt hope flutter in her chest. Like what? Like the way people see each other, like the way we talk about class and race and who gets to be invisible. Marcus smiled slightly. Your resignation speech is all over social media. A lot of people saying it's about time someone said those things. You saw the speech? My aunt has the internet. She showed me the video. Marcus's smile grew wider. You looked pretty fierce. I felt fierce, scared but fierce. They fished together as the sun began to set, painting the lake in shades of gold and orange. Marcus caught 2 bass and insisted on throwing them back. They're too small, he said. Give them time to grow. Marcus, Claire said as they walked back toward the cabin, I need to ask you something important. Okay. I meant what I said about wanting to do better, about learning to see people and treat them fairly, but I can't do it alone. Claire stopped walking and faced him. Would you consider coming back to the city? Not to work for me, I don't have a company anymore, but to work with me, to help me figure out how to make real change. What kind of change? I don't know exactly. Maybe we start a foundation. Maybe we work with other companies to improve wages and working conditions. Maybe we just tell the truth about what it's like to be invisible in America. Claire took a breath. I have money, and now I have time. You have wisdom and experience and the respect of people like your mother. Together, maybe we could actually help people. Marcus considered this. That's a big dream. Yes, it is. And you'd be giving up a lot. Your father's approval, your old life, the world you're used to. I already gave those up when I resigned. You could probably get them back if you wanted. Apologize to the board. Distance yourself from me. Go back to the way things were. Claire shook her head. I can't unsee what I've seen. I can't unknow what I know now. There's no going back. They reached the cabin, a small wooden structure with a wraparound porch and flower boxes under the windows. An older woman who looked like Marcus came out to greet them. You must be Claire, she said warmly. I'm Donna, Marcus's aunt. He's told me all about you. All good things, I hope. Donna laughed. Mostly good. Come in, child. Dinner's almost ready. The cabin was cozy and comfortable, with handmade quilts and family photos everywhere. Donna served fresh fish that Marcus had caught the day before, along with vegetables from her garden and homemade biscuits. Marcus tells me you're thinking about starting some kind of foundation, Donna said over dinner. We're just talking about possibilities, Claire said. I want to do something meaningful with my life, something that helps people. That's good, but make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Donna's eyes were kind but sharp, just like Nina's. Guilt is a poor foundation for anything lasting. What's a better foundation? Love, understanding, real relationships with real people. Donna passed the biscuits around again. You can't help people you don't know. You can't change systems you don't understand. That's why I need Marcus, Claire said honestly. I've lived in a bubble my whole life. I need someone to help me understand the world outside it. And what do you bring to this partnership? Donna asked. Claire had to think about that. Resources, connections, a platform maybe, and a willingness to learn. Those are good things, but the most important thing you bring is yourself, who you are as a person. Donna smiled. Marcus seems to think you're worth the investment. After dinner, Claire and Marcus sat on the porch while Donna cleaned up inside. The lake stretched out before them, dark now, except for the reflection of stars on its surface. Your aunt is wonderful, Claire said. She raised me for a few years when my mom was sick, taught me how to fish, how to think, how to see the good in people, even when they disappoint you. Is that what you're doing with me? Seeing the good even though I disappoint you? Marcus leaned back in his chair. Claire, you've disappointed me a few times, but you've also surprised me more than anyone I've ever met. How? Most people in your position would have written me a check and moved on. You threw away your career instead. I didn't throw it away. I traded it for something better. What's better? Claire looked out at the peaceful lake, thinking about the question. Self-respect, real relationships, a chance to matter in a way that actually helps people. Those are good trades. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds around the lake. An owl hooted somewhere in the trees. Water lapped gently against the dock. Marcus, Claire said eventually, there's something I need to tell you. What's that? I care about you. More than just as a friend, more than just as gratitude for saving my life. Claire felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to continue. I don't know if it's appropriate, given everything that's happened. I don't know if you could ever feel the same way, but I needed you to know. Marcus was very still beside her. Claire. You don't have to say anything. I just needed to be honest. Can I ask you something? Of course. If I was still a janitor, if none of this hero stuff had happened, would you have noticed me then? The question was gentle but pointed. Claire thought about it seriously. Honestly, probably not. I was too wrapped up in my own world to see anyone. She turned to look at him. But I'd like to think that eventually, somehow, I would have, because who you are is impossible to ignore once you really see it. And who am I? You're the man who goes back into the smoke. You're the man who carries groceries for his mother and refuses to be anyone's prop. You're the man who asks hard questions and expects honest answers. Claire's voice grew softer. You're the man who taught me what integrity looks like. Marcus reached over and took her hand. His fingers were warm and callous from years of honest work. I care about you too, he said quietly. It scares me because I know how complicated this could get, but I can't pretend I don't feel it. What do we do with that? We take it slow. We be careful. We make sure we're building something real, not just reacting to all this craziness. Claire squeezed his hand. I can do slow. I'm still learning how to do real. The next morning, Claire and Marcus drove back to the city together. They'd decided that Marcus would stay with Nina for a few more days while Claire figured out her next steps. The media attention would die down eventually, but for now, it was better to be cautious. Where will you go? Marcus asked as they drove through the city streets. I'm not sure. I'll probably stay in a hotel for a while until I figure things out. You could stay with us. Claire looked at him in surprise. With you and your mother? She likes you, and our couch is pretty comfortable. Marcus smiled.
Besides, if you're serious about learning how regular people live, you should probably start by living like one.
Are you sure? The reporters might come back.
Let them come. We're not doing anything wrong.
Claire thought about her sterile high-rise apartment with its expensive furniture and perfect views. Then she thought about Nina's warm kitchen and the sound of family life around her. "I'd like that," she said. "But I'll take the couch. We'll figure it out." They spent that afternoon looking at spaces for the foundation Claire was beginning to envision. Not offices in gleaming downtown towers, but community centers and meeting spaces in neighborhoods where real people lived and worked. In one converted warehouse in Marcus's neighborhood, they met with a group of janitors, security guards, and cafeteria workers who had heard about Claire's resignation and wanted to share their own stories. "Most people look right through us," said Rosa Martinez, the woman who cleaned Harold's office. "We could be robots for all they care." "I was one of those people," Claire admitted. "I'm trying to do better." "Talk is cheap," said another worker, a security guard named James. "What are you actually going to do?" It was a fair question. Claire looked around the room at faces that had been invisible to her just weeks ago. Now she could see the intelligence in their eyes, the dignity in their bearing, the frustration with a system that treated them as disposable. "I don't know exactly," she said honestly. "But I want to find out what you need, what would actually help, and then figure out how to make it happen." "Better wages," Rosa said immediately. "Health insurance that doesn't cost half our paycheck. Respect." "Dignity," added James. "Not being treated like criminals just because we work the night shift." "Opportunities for our kids," said another woman. "Ways to move up, to get better jobs, to break the cycle." Claire listened and took notes. These weren't abstract problems anymore. They were real needs of real people she was beginning to care about. After the meeting, she and Marcus walked through his neighborhood as evening fell. Kids played in the streets while their parents sat on stoops, talking and laughing. It felt alive in a way Claire's world never had. "This feels right," she said as they stopped at the corner store to buy groceries for Nina. "What does?" "This. Being here, listening to people, trying to understand." Claire looked around at the life happening around them. "I spent 30 years climbing ladders that led nowhere I actually wanted to go." "Where do you want to go now?" Claire thought about the question as they walked toward Marcus's building. "I want to go wherever I can be useful, wherever I can help, wherever I can be real." "That's a good destination." 3 months later, Claire stood in the community center where she and Marcus had first met with the workers. It had been transformed into the headquarters of the Reed Whitmore Foundation, a name that had been Marcus's idea. "Your name should go first," Claire had argued. "This was inspired by your example." "Our name should be equal," Marcus had replied. "This is a partnership." The foundation's first initiative was a program to provide better health insurance and educational opportunities for service workers. Nothing revolutionary, just practical help for people who needed it. Nina was there for the opening ceremony, beaming with pride as she watched her son cut the ribbon alongside Claire. Harold was there too, looking uncomfortable but trying to be supportive. "I still think you could have achieved more from inside the corporate world," he said to Claire during the reception. "Maybe," Claire agreed, "but I wouldn't have been me. I would have been who you wanted me to be." Harold considered this. "And who are you now?" Claire looked across the room at Marcus, who was talking to a group of teenagers about scholarship opportunities. He caught her eye and smiled, the same steady, genuine smile that had grounded her through the worst of the media storm. "I'm someone who belongs to a community instead of just owning things. I'm someone who sees people instead of looking through them." Claire smiled at her father. "I'm someone who's worthy of being saved." The media coverage of the foundation's launch was positive but modest. The story of the CEO and the janitor had become the story of two people trying to make a difference. It was less dramatic than the original rescue, but more meaningful. That evening, Claire and Marcus sat on the fire escape outside his apartment, sharing takeout Chinese food and watching the city lights twinkle below them. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked. About what? Giving up your old life, your career, your father's approval? Claire considered the question seriously. I regret that it took me so long to figure out what mattered. I regret all the years I spent being invisible to people who deserved better. But giving up the old life? No regrets at all. Even when your bank account gets lower? Even then, money is easier to replace than integrity. Marcus smiled and took her hand. My mom wants to know when you're going to make an honest man of me. Claire laughed. Is that a proposal? That's me telling you what my mother said. The proposal comes later, when I can afford a ring. Marcus Reed, if you think I care about expensive rings, you haven't been paying attention. I've been paying attention. I just want to do this right. You do everything right. That's what I love about you. The words hung in the air between them. They'd been dancing around the word love for weeks, both of them cautious about moving too fast. I love you too, Marcus said softly. I love your fierce heart and your stubborn conscience and your terrible cooking. I'm getting better at cooking. You burned water yesterday. That was an accident. They laughed together, the sound echoing off the brick walls of the alley below. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and traffic hummed, and the city continued its restless dance. But here, on this fire escape, sharing cheap Chinese food and expensive dreams, Claire Whitmore felt more at home than she ever had in her penthouse apartment. Marcus? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For saving me. Not just from the fire, from everything. From a life that looked successful but felt empty. Marcus lifted their joined hands and kissed her knuckles gently. Thank you for seeing me, for choosing to see all of us. I should have seen you sooner. But you see me now. That's what matters. 6 months later, Claire was mopping floors at the Foundation's community center when Marcus found her. You know we have a cleaning service for that, right? He said, leaning against the doorframe. I know, but I wanted to understand what it feels like. The physical work, the way people look at you when you're holding a mop. Claire wrung out the mop and continued cleaning. I'm learning a lot. Like what? Like how invisible you can feel even when you're standing right in front of someone. Like how satisfying it is to take something dirty and make it clean. She paused in her mopping. Like how much strength it takes to do this work day after day without recognition. Marcus walked over and took the mop from her hands. You don't have to clean floors to understand respect, Claire. Maybe not, but it helps me remember. She gestured around the room where dozens of people had gathered earlier for a job training session. This matters. This work, these people, this place. It all matters. Yes, it does. And we're making a difference. A small difference, but real. Claire nodded. Small and real was better than big and empty. She'd learned that lesson well. That night they walked home through Marcus's neighborhood, their neighborhood now, holding hands and talking about their plans for the next day. The foundation was growing, slowly but steadily. They had 3 full-time employees now, plus dozens of volunteers. It wasn't the empire Claire had once dreamed of building. It was better. It was human-sized, manageable, meaningful. Claire, Marcus said as they reached their building. Yes? He stopped walking and turned to face her. Then, right there on the sidewalk where she'd first come looking for him, Marcus Reed got down on one knee. You said you didn't care about expensive rings, he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Marcus. Claire's eyes filled with tears. This belonged to my grandmother. It's not fancy, but it's real, like us. He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond that caught the streetlight. Claire Whitmore, will you marry me? Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, yes, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Not too tight, not too loose. Just right. As they kissed on that sidewalk, surrounded by the sounds and smells of real life, Claire thought about the night 9 months ago when she'd been trapped in a dark hallway. convinced she was going to die. She'd been saved that night, not just pulled from a fire, but rescued from a life that had looked like success but felt like sleepwalking. Marcus had given her more than her life back. He'd given her a life worth living. "I love you, Marcus Reed," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too, Claire Whitmore, soon to be Claire Reed." "I like the sound of that." "So do I." They walked up to their apartment, their real home, where Nina was waiting with homemade cookies and 1,000 questions about the proposal she'd somehow managed to predict. As Claire settled into the warmth of family life, surrounded by people who loved her for who she was rather than what she owned, she realized she'd finally learned the most important lesson of all. Being saved wasn't about avoiding death. It was about learning how to live. And for the first time in her 30 years, Claire Whitmore, soon to be Claire Reed, was truly, completely, joyfully alive.